If you don't want to enroll into Medicare, only to find out you're going to pay a penalty every single month for the rest of your life, then you may want to stay close and watch this episode. Mo, you and I last week, we broke down just really intro, Medicare Part A, Medicare Part B, and C, and D.
Yeah.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Why? That's the method of organizing the system. Because there's actually, Plan G, F, J, K, L.
So many to consider. Which is why, people get confused about how to plan for Medicare because there's just so many different layers and options and selections to choose from.
Yeah, which is, give you back a little bit of history about me. That's really how I got started, Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, if you go back, I was working at the fire department. This is funny right here. Working at the fire department and obviously coming to the realization that I'm not quite making enough to provide for a wife and kids, right?
Okay.
I think I started there at like $24,000 something a year, okay? And I go to my dad and I'm like, look, man, I got to start a business. I got to do something. What should I do? And his first response was, look, I work with a lot of people that are retired and they keep struggling with Medicare, Social Security, Medicare. It's hard to figure out. And so if you could create a business, an agency here in the state of Georgia to help people find insurance that they need, you can be independent, you're not selling for a particular company. He's like, I think that would work. Of course, there was other people that did it before me.
Right.
And so anyway, I thought, well, let's go for it.
Let's
okay.
Give it a shot, yeah.
Give it a shot. And so here I am, literally, this is like small business at its finest, right? At the fire station, sitting on the floor, handwriting letters. Matter of fact, I even paid my sister Nicole to handwrite some letters, putting them in envelopes, sending them out, trying to generate leads, getting made fun of ultimately. These other guys at the fire department, good friends, they're like, yeah, come on, man, what are you doing? What are you doing? Yeah. Get out of here. You ain't never going to make it with that. And just grinding, And but the point is we started Senior Care Solutions, what ended up being an agency in the Southeast that works with now predominantly just clients of our investment company. But it is it's a confusing topic, okay? And, I was thinking about like a story that might go well with today's topic, which is like, how do you not make a mistake and end up paying all these penalties that you hear about? And there's one story that has always, it stands out because it was kind of really a tragic situation, to be honest with you. And so I get this lead basically that I was, trying to generate and pay for and that type of thing. I go meet this couple, okay, in Rome, Georgia. And when I get there, the wife is on disability, okay? Now, as well as I do, if you're under the age of 65 and you're on Medicare, it's because you got some health conditions. Yeah, you're disabled and you have been on disability for, 24 months at least, unless you have end-stage renal disease. And so anyway, I get there. She's under the age of 65. And she's disabled, and she has a brain tumor. And, just kind of a real tragic, unfortunate situation. Well, her husband worked, I don't know if he worked for the fire department, but he did something for the city.
Okay.
And part of his retirement, he was retiring, and part of his retirement, they were going to continue benefits at that time until the end of the year. Okay. So I'm meeting with them in midsummer, and he's retiring. And as a part of his retirement, we got your benefits covered till the end of the year, right? Now, here's the reality of it. Not a problem, right? Because for him, it's the same insurance he's always had.
How old was he?
He was turning 65. Okay. And actually what happened, let me take this back because it's been a while since I've read this story. He had retired. Okay. Before he met me in January 1st. It was the summer when I was meeting him.
Okay.
When he retired, they covered his insurance till the age of 65. Now that he was turning 65, he had to swap over to Medicare. Okay. So I'm meeting with him and he's like, hey, me and my wife, we've been on the insurance through my employment where I retired from forever. Okay. I retired last December at the end of the year. January 1st was my first day of retirement. And I've continued with the exact same insurance. Okay, insurance company, insurance plan, all that's the same.
Okay.
Now I'm turning 65. Now that I'm turning 65, that insurance goes away, and I need Andrew to get me and my wife on Medicare, meaning I need Medicare A and B activated, and I need to go ahead and get whatever plan I need to go with that. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sitting there, and as he's kind of presenting the story, I'm like, oh, this is not good. This is not good, because what a lot of people forget is that Medicare Part B, to enroll into Medicare Part B, you either A, have to be turning 65, you have to be on disability for 24 months and you're getting it effective on the 25th, or you have to be losing qualified insurance.
Right.
Okay,
right.
well, and this is one of those things that people just miss. Qualified insurance has nothing to do with the insurance itself. It has to do with the source that provides the coverage.
Right. I know exactly where this is going.
All right.
Oh, all right.
So he is eligible, guaranteed to get Medicare Part B. Not a problem. Why? He's turning 65. No big deal. But we got an issue with the one person in his life who's dealing with the most health conditions. Here she is, under the age of 65. She doesn't have Medicare Part B, which means she can't get Medicare Advantage like we talked about last week. She can't get Medicare supplement plans. She can't get a prescription plan until she gets Medicare Part B activated. Okay? Well, to get Medicare Part B activated, you have to be losing qualified insurance. The problem is the qualified insurance was lost back when he retired. So even though the insurance didn't change, according to Medicare, the qualification of your insurance is a result of how many employees you have and also where it's coming from. It has to be a result of active employment. And because he was retired, it wasn't active. Therefore, he lost qualified insurance back in January. She wasn't able to get Medicare Part B turned on until the general enrollment period. And then from there, had to wait until it was activated almost 12 months later.
Oof.
So you're talking about someone who
has a brain tumor,
is on disability,
right,
has a brain tumor, who, obviously needs extensive health services, can't even get Medicare Part B turned on, has no health insurance coverage during that time frame. You know what I mean? So all because of a simple rule that so many can overlook. You know what I mean?
Right. Especially, when you are staying on your employer, quote unquote, employer plan, the plan doesn't change, the card doesn't change, nothing changes. But like you said, the source of that coverage changes. When you are offered retiree insurance or COBRA, your employer, you're no longer employed. Yes, you still have access to the coverage, but it's not credible, qualified coverage. So, yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate, but these little tricks and I'll say loopholes that the government puts inside, one's ability to get health insurance can put you behind. And, whether it's late enrollment penalties, whether it's the cost of your health insurance going up, if you don't file and enroll in Medicare at the appropriate time, it is an issue not just for your spouse, but it's an issue for you. And some of the penalties are lifelong penalties. I mean, you will pay 10% plus on your premiums forever.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And
on some of the penalties, yeah.
No, you're 100% correct. So when you look at Medicare Part B, if you don't turn it on when you're supposed to, which they call that the initial enrollment period or the initial election period. Yeah. But if you don't enroll during that time frame, which is, hey, I'm eligible for the first time ever, basically, to get on Medicare Part B, then you have to qualify for another, what we call a special enrollment period. If you don't qualify for that, then you have to go, which is in my story, this lady had to wait for the general enrollment period, I believe is the
January. Was that January?
January through March.
Right.
Okay, but then the benefits don't become effective until later in the year, that summer.
July, I believe.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you don't enroll, though, to your point, there is a penalty. Now, these penalties exist for Medicare Part B, for Medicare Part D, as in drugs, and the penalty accrues every month. Basically compounds, if you will, for not having it. So as an example, with Medicare Part B, it's 10% a month. Is that correct?
Yeah.
For every month that you go without benefits. And by the time you turn it on, you're paying that percentage value higher on the premium every month for the rest of your life.
Yeah. We had a client whose employer kind of encouraged her to stay on the plan and not enroll in Medicare, and actually cost her husband the penalty for life. So, we were able to.
That's right.
You remember that a few years ago? So we were able to give her all the information that she needed to go back to her employer, and her employer was able, I think, cut her check for what we deemed to be the lifetime penalty for a husband. But yeah, I mean, it's
because they made a mistake. I do remember that.
Yeah, they made a mistake and told her to not enroll in Medicare.
And we went to
B.
fight for that. And we were like, listen, now you've messed all this up literally for the rest of her life.
Right.
I want to go back and fix that because I did say it wrong. Because the difference is with Medicare Part B, the late enrollment period is 10% for every 12 months you go without it.
Yes.
Okay, Medicare Part D for drugs, is 1% a month for every month you go without qualified insurance. So over a 12-month time frame, 12% and so forth. So if you go, 3 years without it, you can take 36% penalty, multiply it by the average drug premium, not your premium. Okay, you might say, well, my premium is 50 cents. No. Not
That's
your premium.
average.
The average premium for all the drug plans available for that year, and then they tack that onto your premium. Okay, so point is, enrolling is an important topic. You don't want to get it confused. You don't want to make a mistake. All right, you got to make sure you make the right decisions. Let's move on. Another big mistake that people make is this whole thing called the income-related monthly adjustment, IRMA, right? People getting crushed. And this is most of, what we find, a lot of our high net worth clients, a lot of, maybe their friends and associates, or new clients coming in saying, hey, I did this tax strategy, only to find out, basically, I screwed myself on the back end, you know? Mm-hmm. All right, my premiums just went up $500 for me and my wife.
Yeah. The way Medicare Part B works is that, for the most part, there's a basic cost that most people pay, $174, I believe, right now. Base premium, right? So, and I think if you're single, that's like $103. If you make $103,000 or less, give or take, and then if you're married, I think that's like twice as much, $206,000, something along that lines. But anyway, if you make that amount of income during retirement, then your Medicare Part B premium is $174, whatever it is right now. And I think the misconception that most people think of when they think of income, they think of like W-2 income, right? They're thinking about, well, I'm no longer working, I'm retired, so my income is going to be lower than that number, or I'm going to stay underneath that cap, so my Medicare premiums won't be increased. But what they don't realize is that what the government calculates to adjust your Medicare premium is income. It's everything that's considered income. So that is obviously any type of W-2 or 1099 income that comes in, your Social Security.
100%.
100% your Social Security.
Not just the taxable portion.
Not just the taxable portion. If you have rental income, but also required minimum distributions. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that is at age 73 now. If you're over the age 73 and have money in pre-tax dollars, right? So pre-tax 401ks, pre-tax IRAs, the government forces you to pull that money out.
Yeah.
Well, pull a portion of that account out every year. That distribution is considered income. Mm-hmm. Which can, and I believe it is probably the number one way that your Medicare premiums can go up, is because you're being forced to take these distributions. Well, most people are while they're saving for retirement, are saving in these pre-tax retirement accounts. And if they're doing a good job, working with a great advisor, or even if they're self-managing and getting great market returns, which is what they want, these accounts are accumulating and growing, which means these distributions can be pretty substantial. Mm-hmm. And so all of a sudden, you're being forced to take a distribution out of 50, 60, 70, 80 grand, tack that on top of your Social Security, and all of a sudden, you're bumped into this different bracket for your Medicare Part B premiums. And those premiums, that adjustment is substantial.
Oh, it's substantial.
Yeah.
Not to mention, okay, one other thing I'll throw in there to your calculation. We've had some good market years.
Yeah.
In spite of some crazy seasons, 2021, 2023, 2024, Not too bad.
Not too bad.
All right. So if you're working with, I'm not going to throw any labels out there. If you're working with a big box firm, let's say, all right, and maybe even they're getting the returns, but they don't know how to harvest correctly on the gains, then they're ending the year with these 1099s. And listen, we get business this way, right? Because we specialize in tax strategies. But you know as well as I do, the people that know where I'm going, they know where I'm going, because what's happening is they see great returns, and they get to the end of the year and they get a 1099 on top of their, strong income streams already. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then they're getting crushed, and capital gains also goes into this,
right?
Not just short-term, long-term.
Long-term.
Yeah. So it is, it's one of those things you can do your work, deploy a solid tax strategy, potentially maybe like a Roth conversion. You could do, harvesting on your gains. There's, and yet no matter how perfect and how well thought out it might be, it could still create a major consequence on your premiums. And that goes for your drug plan too.
Right.
Your drug plan can be increased, not as much, but it can go up at almost $80 a month added on to the premium just because, you created too much modified adjusted gross income.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where tax plan, but that's where planning overall comes into play, right? I mean, there are some ways that you can reduce the possibility mm-hmm. of your premiums being adjusted and increased just by doing some simple planning ahead of time. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's where, a good, solid written financial plan really makes sense. Right. Because when you can forecast where your cash flow, where your income, how your income is going to look in the future, then you can see, OK, well, if I stay this route, here's what can happen with my Social Security. Here's what can with taxation of my Social Security. Here's how my Medicare premiums can mm-hmm. increase. But just by these simple tactics and these decisions that you make consistently over time, pre-planning, you can avoid it.
You can avoid it.
You can avoid it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
or at least limit the cushion the blow.
Yeah. Yeah. But the problem is many people work with financial advisors, right? And the truth is they're just not getting those types of services. Mm-hmm. And so I do think you need to be, for anybody that's out there shopping, right? You need to be mindful. And when I say mindful, when you're going through the process of hiring a firm that you're going to work with, obviously there's some important questions to ask there, okay, to be able to understand if they have the expertise to offer the services that you might need. Mm-hmm. So simple questions like, what's your thoughts about Social Security? What would your, just general thoughts be about my husband and myself, or vice versa, wife and husband? How do you think you would play that out in our scenario? Just listen, mm-hmm. see their response. See if they're giving you some context there to their response. That's going to be, okay, well, this guy actually knows what he's talking about. This woman knows what they're talking about. Medicare too. Ask. Yeah. Ask about taxes. And if their response is, oh, well, we don't do the Medicare, you'll want to meet with so-and-so, or we don't do the taxes, you'll want to make sure you talk with your accountant or CPA, or we don't do, X, Y, Z, then that you're just working with an investor. And that's fine, but they should call themselves investors, not financial planners, and having the ability to really speak to the whole financial well-being of your life.
Yeah.
One other thing, and then we'll wrap it up. This is still on health insurance, but not Medicare, okay? How many times do you and I get the opportunity to work with a successful family who is entering into early retirement and who has one option to create cash flow for themselves in retirement, but in return create a cost on their regular health insurance premiums, $20,000, let's say, a year between a husband and a wife under age 65. Or with good planning, can create cash flow from other sources that were created by knowing what they wanted to accomplish, mm-hmm. and getting them subsidies for their health insurance and reducing the cost 60, 70, 80%.
Oh, yeah.
I'm thinking of a family right now last year that walked in and literally they are clients and have been clients. They needed a distribution, and we started talking, And I'm not saying I thought about this ahead of time. This came through the conversation, but thank the Lord it got to that point. I didn't even know they were getting a subsidy. Okay, because I didn't know, I wasn't fully, I didn't ask the questions when we first got started. And we're having this conversation. I'm like, okay, well, where are we going to take the money from? Or I'm thinking through. And then it just, I asked the question, where are you guys getting your health insurance? And they started opening up. And I thought, my goodness, if we take this distribution, if we would process it from here,
pay back the penalty.
All of what you just took out of your account would have increased the cost of your premium by a similar value. It would have been a wash.
Right.
You would have spent your money and in return had to pay more in premium. That distribution would have cost you double. Double. Everything, and this is always a good thing to remember, when it comes to retirement, you can't segment, which is why you can't work with a firm that segments everything into separate pieces, because everything's so intertwined and laced together. So anyway, I just was thinking about that, and I'm like, yeah, healthcare reform is no different.
Yeah, and that's where diversification comes into play, right? But when you are retired, one of the things that most people are concerned about is their income. Where are they going to get their income from, right? And so whether it is if you're fortunate enough to have a pension, that's one source of income. Obviously, Social Security is another source of income. But then outside of that, others are looking for their investment accounts to provide that income for them, whether it's a Roth IRA, 401k, brokerage account, savings accounts, whatever it is. And the diversification that comes into play is, well, where do we get our income from? And just by understanding which sources to tap into at the right time, do I pull from my Roth? Do I pull from my IRA? Do I do a blend? Do I do a hybrid? Do I pause, defer all my retirement account, take from my savings accounts just to fill in some gaps for income? All of that matters. All of that plays a huge factor. And
it all has like some type of trickling effect on everything else.
So the diversification of your income source plays a huge factor, especially prior to your RMD age, because at that point, you've lost one option.
Yeah,
right. Because now you're being forced to take distributions from pre-tax accounts, right? So good planning, not just for investment wise, but good planning to help with health insurance options and health insurance premiums.
Yeah, man. Solid conversation today. Yeah. And just a reminder, that everybody needs, to have their T's crossed and their I's dotted, when it comes to health insurance and the way cash flows work through their life in retirement. So, hey, that said, though, for each of you, stay with us, because next week I think you and I are going to talk about, how to win in the enrollment period that's like knocking at the door.
Right.
So, all right, man. See you next week.
See you next week.